Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Padraig Carmody. I'm a lecturer here in geography. What I want to talk to you about today is what it's like to study geography in Trinity, what kinds of things we cover in the course. Now, for those of you who are interested in studying geography, there are 4 ways of coming into geography in Trinity. You can come in through arts, 2 subject moderatorship. So that's studying geography with economics or German or history or whatever it might be. You can come in through science, where you do general science in your first year or 2 and then specialise in geography in your 3rd and 4th year. You can come in through geography and political science, and there's a new earth science degree, which is geology and physical geography. So if you're particularly interested in physical geography, that might be a way for you to come in as well. So what do we do here in geography in Trinity? So there's a video actually you can watch on your own time on YouTube. Geography Matters, right here, right now. You search for that on YouTube. You can look at that yourself. I won't play that now. So a lot of people, if you're out talking to people and you say you're interested in geography, or when people talk to me oftentimes and I say I'm a geographer, they say, oh, you must know all the capital cities of the world, or you must know all of the different rivers and lakes around the world. But it's more than that. Geography at school level is one thing. When you come to college, it's a somewhat different thing. In college, it's really about developing your analytical skills. Okay? So it's about understanding why things are where they are, how they change through time. How do we understand those processes? So it's more about the understanding. It's less about the facts, although those are important, obviously. But you can always go to Wikipedia or to an encyclopedia or to an atlas and find out where a particular country or river or capital city is. Okay? What we're more interested in is developing your kind of brain power, your analytical skills, to understand why it is that things are the way that they are. Now, one of the other things about geography which makes it a little bit different from some of the other subjects is, in addition to the focus on those analytical skills, we're also interested in applied skills. So things like geographic information systems. How many people have heard of GIS before? Put your hands up if you've heard of GIS, Geographic Information Systems. Okay, so only one person has heard. Oh no, a few more maybe. GIS is kind of computerized mapping. But it's something that employers find attractive. It's an applied skill, so you will know how to analyze. For example, if you were interested in siting a sewage plant, what kinds of factors, geographic factors, would you have to think about when you were doing that? Okay? So you do up different maps of different things, population densities, land prices, and you find the best place to site it using them. That's just a kind of simple example. Other applied skills are things like statistics, and in geography you do that. We also give you the opportunity to do an independent research project. So in the summer between your 3rd and your 4th year, you do an independent research project if you choose to do geography only in 4th year. Okay? And that's another thing that, again, employers find useful. Now, the other thing when people hear geography, often they think immediately maps. And what are maps? Well, maps are a static representation of spatial information in 2 dimensions. Okay? So they're flat, 2-dimensional. And you can never achieve with 2 dimensions an accurate representation of something in 3 dimensions. There will always be distortions on maps. Either the distances or the areas, something has to give. Something will always be wrong. Now geographers are increasingly using digital information. Rather than just maps which are drawn on paper, geographers increasingly use digital information. So data from satellite images, for example, and processing them through computers in geographic information systems. That allows you to do things like predict crop yields. Maybe you're interested in crop yields in sub-Saharan Africa. And the different crops give off different signatures, light signatures. Okay? You can pick that up in a satellite, and you can use that to predict crop yields when you merge that with climate models and so on. We're using different tools now than we used to use. This is a graphic showing you a digital elevation model. So you can get the kind of three-dimensional effect from this. Okay, so a DEM, a digital elevation model of South Dublin and the Dublin Mountains. And this is from SPOT satellite, which is a French satellite, one of the two main systems. The other one is American. So what kinds of other issues? Those are some of the tools that we use. But what are the issues that we're interested in geography? We're interested in addressing some of the world's major challenges for contemporary society. So things like international development. I do a lot of work in Africa. So trying to understand why some places are poor, what can be done about that, how can you improve access to energy, give people access to potable water, raise their incomes and so on. Environmental change. Obviously the big issue in terms of environmental change is climate change, and we have a number of people in the geography department who specialise in looking at climate change from different angles. Some of them look at changes in sea level through time. Others are interested in the changes to soil types and things like that through time as a result of climate change. Globalization, most of you I'm sure have heard this term, but what is globalization? Anybody give me a definition of globalization? I'm sure most of you have heard it. Maybe tell me what globalization is? Any ideas? No? Nobody brave enough? In college you will be called on in class as well. One of the differences you will find when you come to college is that the model of teaching is different. You'll be expected to contribute to the teaching yourselves, okay, in this. What is globalization? Well, if you think about it, globalization is an inherently geographical process. This idea of global, there's something happening at a global level. What is it? Well, there's more interlinkages between places. Think of where all of your clothes are made. If you were to look at the tag on the person's clothes sitting beside you, where do you think you might find that they're from? Well, China, Vietnam, Turkey, Mexico. Okay? So there are linkages of trade, flows of investment. We have global environmental change, which is another feature of globalization. So geographers are interested in this as well. How are places linked up together increasingly? And what are the impacts of those different types of linkages between places? Some kind of micro things that we're interested here. This is the so-called Darfur stove, which was developed at the University of California, Berkeley. And it's a stove which uses less biomass or firewood. Okay? So women generally, have to spend less time collecting firewood. It gives off lower emissions, and indoor smoke is a major cause of health problems for people in the developing world. Okay? It can be sometimes in the top 5 causes of premature death. Indoor smoke inhalation. So innovations like this, low carbon stoves, how are they rolled out across different places? There's someone in Trinity who is developing another kind of stove which not only is low carbon, but also lets people charge their mobile phones or run a small electric light bulb off it. Right? This here is a Ross water purifier. Again, in the developing world, getting access to clean water is a major challenge for people, okay? And transporting it. And this kind of gets around both of these issues. You're able to transport the water, but as you transport it, the drum moves and it filters the water. Okay? So you achieve two kind of goals simultaneously. And these are both examples of what we call inverse infrastructure. So if you think about how we get water, we get it through a huge pipe system and network, okay, which is very expensive to build and to run. These are examples of infrastructure which actually move with people, inverse infrastructure. Okay? So it's a different kind of approach to delivering these kinds of things. Okay? So the geography of these is different. Okay. So what are some of the big questions in geography as an academic subject that we address? Why are some places rich and other places poor? Why is it that the amount that the 3 richest people in the world own is more than what the poorest 600 million people earn in a year? Why do about 50% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa live on less than the equivalent of what $1.25 would buy you in the United States a day? Maybe a cup of coffee, okay, in somewhere cheap, like McDonald's, not in Starbucks. Okay? So why are some places rich? Why are some places poor? What's the history, the economics, the politics that has gone into making some places rich and other places poor, and the kinds of links between them? For political geographers, one of the questions they might be interested in is, why do some places suffer from political instability? So most of you carry something in your pockets, and some of it at least comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's the thing that makes your mobile phones and this computer work. It's a mineral called coltan. And a war was fought in the Democratic Republic of Congo between 1998 and 2003, in which between 3 to 5 million people died in order to get access to this mineral. Okay. So how do we explain why some places suffer from conflict and political instability? How is it related to our consumption patterns and these other issues? How do we understand the way places look or different landscapes? Why is it that New York has skyscrapers but Ballina doesn't? Okay? How do we explain these differences in the human and physical landscapes? What kinds of processes have gone into making those differences? I mentioned this one to you before, climate change. How will global climate change affect Ireland or other places? So we had the floods a few weeks ago. Some people say this is an example of global climate change. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an engineer, and he designs shopping centres. And they have flood tanks in these to take about 100 millimetres rainfall per day. And he said they've had 2 100-year events in the last 5 years. So things that are only meant to happen every 100 years in terms of this huge amount of rainfall in a day. He says we've had now 2 of those in the last 5 years or so. Okay? So climate change is affecting Ireland. If you think about Africa, the United Nations predicts that the value of African crops could fall by up to 90% by the end of this century as a result of global climate change. So these are issues which will really affect us and people around the world, but in different ways. Okay? Maybe we're more affected through flooding, maybe other people through crop loss or reduced yields or whatever it might be. Health geographers are interested in things like, how do diseases spread across space and how can we combat them? People talk about new diseases of globalization, the fact that the world is linked up through air travel much more so than it used to be. So you can have something like swine flu or avian flu start in Hong Kong and within a matter of hours be transmitted to New York or to Europe, okay, if someone has contracted that and takes a flight. So some people talk about these diseases of globalization. How do these originate and how do they spread? How can they be combated? And the ability to combat different diseases is very much a function of your economy, how much money you have to spend on combating different diseases. So these are some maps from National Geographic showing a couple of different things about swine flu. First of all, the risk of spread. You can see the countries in the dark red there up at the top had the highest risk of spread of swine flu. Canada, Russia, some European countries, and so on. But have a look at the next map down. Risk based on capacity to contain. Okay? So the rich countries with good health systems are able to put in place public health measures which can contain the spread of swine flu much more easily than countries which only have maybe a couple of dollars a year per person to spend on public health. And on the final map there, the risk of emergence. You can see these, it's not a simple environmental factor. There are all sorts of other politics and economics that will come into play which will determine how badly a country or a region is affected by a particular disease in this example. Okay, so I mentioned this to you at the beginning. There are 4 ways you can come into geography: through science, your 071, through the arts program, 2-subject moderatorship, TSM, this new earth science degree, which is geography and geology. We also have a new geography and political science degree as well. So what do you cover in the different years of geography? Well, all degrees in, all undergraduate degrees, bar a few like medicine, are 4-year degrees. In years 1 and 2 in geography, you cover things, the 3 main fields of geography. So that's physical geography, lakes, rivers, mountains, how are they made, plate tectonics, which I'm sure those of you who are doing geography in school have talked about. Environmental geography, human geography. Those are covered in a course in second year called Changing Worlds. You do courses on the collection and analysis of geographic data. How do geographers collect data? Through surveys, through interviews, through satellite data. Okay, so you cover these different methods of collecting the data that we use to analyse the things we're interested in. You do geography seminars. What are these? These are small group teaching sessions where you have 10 or 12 people in the class and you write essays week by week and get feedback on them. Okay, so that's to develop your writing skills, and it's a great kind of discipline to have. In 3rd and 4th year, there's more choice open to you, depending on what you're interested in. If you're more interested in physical geography or human geography or however it might be. So you'll see the courses, the kinds of courses you can take there in 3rd and 4th year. Globalization, I teach a course on African development, geomorphology, hydrology, and so on. Now the other thing that is a little bit different about geography is there's a lot of emphasis placed on fieldwork. Okay, so it's not just a totally academic exercise. You're not just sitting in the library or reading your books at home, but you're actually getting out into the field. So we also run field trips. Sometimes those are overseas to Majorca. Last year we had some which went to Clough-Jordan, Ireland's first eco-village. So this is a village in Offaly, I think, where it's aiming to be a zero carbon, a totally sustainable kind of eco-village. So we went and had a field trip down there. Okay, so just examples of some of the places that we've gone on field trips. Iceland. The Kenya trip was for a master's program. We have a number of master's programs that go out to Kenya and Rwanda, Majorca, another one as well. Now, one of the things about the program here at Trinity is that we also have a lot of graduate programs, master's and PhD students involved in these different programs here. You can see some of the kinds of things that they're studying. Biodiversity, politics, special economic zones in India. And you'll also have a chance to interact with them and learn more about what it is that they're doing. Okay, so we have people who are doing research around the world and they bring that to their teachings. This is the idea of research-led teaching. So the idea is that you get exposed to kind of cutting-edge stuff that the researchers are actually doing at the moment. So just to give you an example of some of the things that I'm involved with at the moment. I have a project going on the uses of information technology by small businesses in South Africa and Tanzania. So Africa has the fastest growing mobile phone penetration rate in the world. The number of people getting access to mobile telephony in Africa is the fastest growing in the world. Most of us already have mobile phones, right? But the uptake in Africa is very, very fast because a lot of people still don't. You can see the growth rates per year here on this map. 58% people more each year in Africa getting access to mobile phones. I'm interested in finding out how it is that small businesses use mobile phones. Is it transforming the way that they do business? Another project I've been working on the last few years is the so-called New Scramble for Africa. Why is it that China, India, the US, France, why is it that they're investing in Africa much more than they used to? Why do we hear about companies like Daewoo from South Korea going to buy up more than half of the arable land in Madagascar a few years ago? So this one Korean company was going to buy half of all of the land on which you could grow crops in Madagascar to export the corn and the palm oil back to South Korea. How do we understand that new scramble for Africa? What's the geography of that? So I've been working on that the last few years. In particular, biofuels. The idea that you can grow corn and convert it into ethanol, and then you can run your car or truck or whatever it is off that. And there's an injustice here in the sense that the people who have done least to contribute to the problems of global climate change, those people living on $1 or $1.25 a day in Africa or in India, and who have very, very low carbon emissions, they're actually the people who are going to suffer the most from the impact of global climate change. Because their livelihoods are dependent on agriculture, and also in many cases their governments simply don't have the money to put flood control infrastructure and so on in place in the same way as we do. Okay? There's a kind of justice aspect to this. If you're interested in finding out more about the programme, you can go onto our website, the Geography website. In there you'll find the Undergraduate Course Handbook. And the Undergraduate Course Handbook will tell you all of the different modules or courses that you can take over the course of the 4 years. Right? And it'll explain to you about writing your own undergraduate thesis, where you can go if you're interested in going to France or Germany or Holland to study for a year in third year. It'll explain all about that. Okay, so just a quote from Michael Palin there. You can travel the seas, poles and deserts and see nothing. To really understand the world, you need to get under the skin of the people and the places. In other words, learn about geography. Okay, so if there are any questions, I will take those. And I'll also hang around for a few minutes as well if you want to talk to me individually. I'm happy to do that as well. Okay, no questions? All right, we'll leave it there then.